Welcome to the Wake Up Call for the Soul podcast with Bill and Claire, where we go deep and wide on subjects intended to support our awakening to greater truth, beauty, goodness, freedom, joy, peace, harmony, and love. Hey, Claire, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad you're here too, because it would be really lonely without you.
I guess that's true. Well, I was looking at your list of ideas earlier, and I saw
Mm,
that you had listed stuff about the earth and the environment and
mm,
pollution and all that good stuff.
mm,
Um, and I was kind of drawn to that because I have been listening to a guy on YouTube who I guess you could say he kind of falls into the spiritual realm a little bit in terms of what he talks about. But he has really been talking a lot about the environment and the urgent issues within that topic. And it just has been making me think a lot lately, very like philosophically, I guess, maybe a little bit
mm,
spiritually.
mm-hmm.
So I was kind of just curious why you put that on your list and if there was anything in particular that you had to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally game to go into that. I have these memories as a child of being outside and just the beauty of even my little half-acre lot on Echo Vale in North Canton, Ohio, back in the, ooh, should I say? Okay, yeah, it was in the 70s, and I'm back there and I love climbing the trees. I love we had a really nice sugar maple in the back that I just loved to climb, and I would just spend time up there and watch the ants on the trees and I just the bugs and the leaves and the sun coming through. And so I've just always had this kind of love of nature, of life. My parents, when I was a kid, for some reason, when I was what was I? I was like 4 years old or something. I demanded that my birthday party have a frog theme. I don't have any memory of this, but there were like pictures which burned up in a house fire years ago. I've always had this interest in life and animals and nature, and oh, and one of the gifts that I got on an annual basis was a subscription to, I don't know if they still have this magazine. Have you ever heard of Ranger Rick? Like the kids' nature magazine?
Oh, it sounds a little familiar, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard references to it in pop culture. For example, I've heard Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy, where Star-Lord calls him Ranger Rick or something like that. Or
Oh,
oh, and there's also a reference to it where Sigourney Weaver's character calls Quaritch Ranger Rick too. So, anyways, there's these pop culture references to Ranger Rick. Well, Ranger Rick was this. He's a raccoon. That's the character who's like in charge of the kids magazine. Anyways, so I got this magazine and I look forward to like every month. It came in a brown wrapper, like it had this brown cover on it to keep the real cover really nice, which I loved. And I loved looking at the images and reading the articles and learning about fungi and plants and animals and ecosystems and all this. I just loved it. So there's that foundation. And actually, when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a some kind of mad scientist in my garage solving the world's problems through chemistry and physics, and maybe I'd have a mini particle accelerator
I
they
love
have
it.
in Ghostbusters or whatever. Well, anyways, I went up into humanities and human services, so go figure. My dad was a earth science teacher, so see, that's part of it too. Like my dad's this earth science teacher. Most of his career was middle school earth science. And so he brought home rocks and minerals. I just love rocks, minerals, crystals. I used to have a rock and mineral field guide that I carried with me everywhere, that I would just look at my rock and field mineral guide. Anyway, yeah, so I've always had this love of nature and things like that. And then I have these memories as a child where I would see things, litter or pollution or the exhaust coming out of bus tailpipes. I just had this deep sense like this is wrong. There's something wrong here. It shouldn't be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. And I mean, those are some of my earliest perceptions or memories, is just sort of the wrongness of a lot of things that people have created and done. And in this relationship to the idea that the earth is this really beautiful place full of life and that gives life and makes life possible and things. So that's kind of this whole background, I guess. And then we are now seeing in pretty spectacular fashion changes happening on this planet that are completely obviously related to human activity. Changes in weather patterns, changes in precipitation, in temperature, in ocean currents and airflows, and even aspects of the lithosphere, the crust, where there are earthquakes because of different activities like fracking, or they'll extract stuff from the planet and then they'll inject salt water into those places and things too. It seems like a big deal to me because like without the earth we don't exist. And so
Right.
and I think and I guess one of the things that really I think most people, like some people, probably this guy that you're listening to on YouTube, you used word like urgent issues and things, and that there's an urgency here. And I don't know if people really appreciate the power of human choice.
Mm,
That there are things like there's all this material stuff that we've been talking about, right? Pollution and waste and all kinds of things that people are materially doing to harm the planet. But like the other thing that I think about a lot is the fact that, as far as I know, I don't believe this planet has ever supported over 8.5 billion souls. Um,
yeah.
that's a lot of humanity. I mean, that's a friggin'
Yeah.
a lot of human beings. And then when I think about 8.5 plus and growing still billion souls on the planet, and all of these souls have issues. We've all got our challenges. We're all in our own ways contributing a certain amount of resistance where we're creating kind of this energetic load on the planet. I'm not even talking about all the waste, the garbage, the pollution, the material stuff. I'm talking about purely energetic, mental, where people are out of harmony with truth, with spiritual laws that have to do with things like creation and harmony. And so when I look at what we are materially doing to the planet, which is to me a direct function of our level of awareness or consciousness as people on the planet, and then you just take all the people with all of our problems that we have, all the resistance that we have, and how we're kind of feeding this resistance, this negativity, this kind of darkness. It's interesting because I used to always think life on the earth, we humans will probably wipe ourselves out with nuclear weapons, but
Mhm.
the earth will be fine. And my perspective is kind of shifted in that I feel that if human beings, if humanity were allowed to persist as it is right now, I'm now of the mind that the power of our choice, kind of to go back to that comment about the power of human choice, human will, decision making, we actually have the capability to literally kill the planet, to extinguish the life force of this planet, which is like
Wow.
so. And I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm guessing most people would be like, no, 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 that human beings aren't capable of that. But when I think about the earth, her kind of consciousness, her awareness, I always thought that she was kind of strong enough on her own to sort of, shake us off. I'll be done with you human beings, and we'll start over with nicer species like dolphins and whales or something. And but now yeah, I feel really convicted right now that, again, if we were allowed to persist, if we were just allowed to keep going the way we're going, that we literally extinguish the light that is this planet and make it unlivable for anything and everything, where it would just be a dead ball of rock. I mean, not that anything in the universe is dead, but relatively speaking, this planet is still, regardless of what we humans have done to it, this incredibly beautiful and place full of abundant life and things, but there's a lot of stress going on. I
Right.
feel like I've talked a lot, but you asked, so
No,
that's that's
absolutely.
that's my that's my attempt to express a little bit of what that's about for me. And that I guess the next phase is kind of that earth changes thing, that I do feel that the earth is changing, that she is responding, and that she is in harmony with source and all of the forces of light and goodness and everything to help kind of wake us up and to help humanity get back on track, as opposed to this awareness that is so out of alignment with the truth of pretty much everything. I'll be
Wow.
quiet now and I'll take a drink.
I thought that was very insightful. When you were talking about kind of this spiritual load on the earth, would you say that that's kind of like this idea of the collective consciousness, or is
Mhm.
it something different?
I had a conversation with someone where they were talking about so I'm going to go to Carl Jung
Mm,
with the collective unconscious, and where he had this idea, this concept that all of these symbols and archetypes and things come out of this collective unconscious. There was someone, I was in a group where someone was kind of talking about the collective unconscious as kind of being like this awesome place where there's all these great ideas and stuff. I was like, oh, you know what? When I tune into the collective unconscious, it is a regular garbage dump. Um,
yeah.
like there's just all this old stuff that's like most of it isn't really helpful, and it's tied to this sort of idea of the human condition, or what I call the fabricated world of human invention, that this idea of stuff that people have just made up that has a temporary reality because people keep feeding it, but when people stop feeding it, it won't exist anymore. So yeah, when I'm talking about that load, that psychic, energetic load that humanity's putting on the planet outside of what we observe materially, it falls into this category of what I would call the human condition or the fabricated world of human invention, things that have a temporary existence because people choose to give their life force to them so that they can continue to exist even though they have no ultimate reality to them. You can pick almost any ism and say that it's part of the human condition, part of this fabricated world, and it's part of the load on the planet. So,
Hmm.
rugged individualism, that's an idea for me that is part of this fabricated pseudo reality whose time is nearly up. Capitalism, that's in there. Pretty much every religion and almost everything that's in them. Like, oh boy, people are really going to be thrilled with that. But it's like all the stuff people have invented that we've just made up. Even and I guess at the root of all this stuff is this illusion of separation.
Yes.
It's this idea that somehow the fundamental reality is not one, it is not unified, it is not even intimately connected and related. That no, I can take stuff and I can separate it and I can say this is that and that is this, and they have nothing to do with each other. They are in no way connected. When there are those of us, and I know you've had these experiences, I know I've had them too, we know that there are relationships, that there are connections, unities, harmonies, whatever we want to call them, that exist beyond the apparent sort of superficial mental overlay that people put on stuff saying like, oh, these things are separate and they have nothing to do with each other.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it all comes for me like that's the root. That's like the root cause where the choice for separation then very much easily leads not only to distinctions and differences, but to judgments about, things and polarities of good and bad and right and wrong and light and darkness and all this stuff people have made up where they take continuums of reality or things that are really one and say, oh no, 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 they are separate. This is this
Mm.
category, this goes in this box, this goes over here, and none of these things will ever meet or be connected because I say so. I feel like I gone to preaching or something.
No, that's
uh
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
so anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
there was this sort of revolution in consciousness. I mean, I think it started largely because of Rachel Carson, which, by the way, for anyone who cares, I'm broadcasting from southwestern Pennsylvania here from the Pittsburgh area. Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, kind of an ecological classic, this idea that, oh, what human beings do matters. And we affect ecosystems, and that these things are complex and they're alive and they're full of information and knowledge and wisdom, and we need to pay more attention to try to live in harmony with them. This whole ecological movement that kind of came in the 60s and 70s, whereas before that, oh, nature is just stuff that we use for what we want.
Hmm.
And yet, even though that movement has made a lot of progress and strides and things, I mean, we're still here from my perspective, and apparently from the gentleman on YouTube and some others, killing the planet, even with the little bit of knowledge we have about the interconnectedness of nature, of life on this planet.
Yeah, yeah. I've always felt it's pretty concerning, in my opinion, the level of like disconnect a lot of people seem to have with nature as if like they don't affect it and it doesn't affect them. And I mean, I guess there's probably a lot of reasons for that, but I as a kid, I felt spiritually connected to nature. I know I used to, well, I spent a lot of time playing with rocks, first of all.
Oh, my
Um,
kind of girl, yeah.
yes, I would stack them up and put them in my
Mm.
pocket so my mom would find them in the wash. And I loved, oh, this freaked the other little girls out at school, if they ever found out. But back at home, my parents had a compost pile. And as a little girl, I loved to just go dig in it and find all the worms and just look at them because I thought they were my friends. I was like, oh, I love these little guys. Um,
Nice.
and I know there was this one time I had a friend over. I was pretty little, and we wanted to make in our backyard like a little, I don't know, like a monument maybe like out of branches and different like rocks and pine needles and stuff, and we wanted to kind of make it like an ode to like the four seasons, and we wanted stuff to like kind of represent each season. And I know my mom found out and she was all like, oh well, I don't want you girls doing that because I don't like the idea of you like worshiping nature. And I was kind of confused because I'm like, I'm not worshiping it. I just think that it
Mm.
should be celebrated. And I also really love crystals and minerals. In fact, on my trip to Door County recently, we went to this giant rock shop, and it was so overwhelming for me. I was so excited that I actually like walked around almost in tears, and my family was like, "What's going on?" But I was just, it was breathtaking, and I had such a hard time picking out what I was going to buy. But I think over the years as I've gotten older, I have kind of lost a little bit of that connection with nature and the environment. There's this joke in like the gamer community of like go touch grass.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and when I was on this trip, we ended up going to like, I don't know if it was like a state park, a county park, and it was kind of along the shore, and there was just water hitting against this rock. And I know that my family was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of violent." Like it was kind of an intense sound. It wasn't like the
Mm.
calming like trickle, it was like whoosh. But I actually loved it. I just sat there listening to it and I was like, "Oh man, I've been needing this for so long." But
Hmm.
then I turn around and there's litter on the ground. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh my gosh, why? And I know
Hmm.
litter is honestly, it's just one of the many, many things that is
Yeah.
happening with the earth. It's not
Yeah.
everything, but it's definitely a part of it. And I don't know, it made me sad. And I was like, nature, here I am gaining relaxation and peace from this experience. And what are we as humans like giving back to nature? I mean, some of
Hmm.
us do take care of it, but also like the litter. I was like, is this how we're repaying Mother Earth? So that was kind
Hmm.
of just like a blurb about how I've been feeling. I know, I guess there's a lot of directions I could kind of take that in. I'm trying to think what would be most productive to talk about.
Fair enough. Oh, what I can do, I mean, I can just tell you some of what's coming up for me, and
Yeah.
what you were sharing. Yeah, my favorite place, one of my favorite places has always been rock shops. Just like,
Yes.
it's not heaven on earth, but it's pretty darn close for me. And right, and even the story, like, with your mom, thinking somehow that by celebrating the beauty and the awesomeness of creation, that you have slipped into paganism and
Yeah.
and and Wicca, and you are now, you've now gone to the dark side, and you are, no, 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 can't do that. But these are the messages we receive, right? Like to express the genuine love of our beings, for life, for this planet, for everything that makes everything possible, and then to somehow say that there's something wrong with that, it's just kind of you use the word sadness, with regard to the idea of how we're handling our responsibilities as it goes to what I would call reciprocity with the earth. Yeah, I have. It wasn't actually that long ago that someone taught me the whole touch grass thing from kind of the gaming community because I was like, oh, okay, so that. All right. So before I get into that topic, because I want to get into literally the touching grass topic, this has been a part of my world for a long time, but I still think there's a lot of people who know nothing about this, and it's amazing. But before I get into that, you in your stories kind of highlighted the at least for me, the importance of gratitude. How often are we truly deeply grateful to the earth, to aspects of nature and the animal kingdom, the creatures that some of us may eat, plants that I'm guessing most of us, one way or another, are eating in order to survive, like that we are one with these things, and yet we receive, but what do we give in response? And
Hmm.
to me, I mean, one of the important things that we can give in response to what we receive is our gratitude, our love, our appreciation to be able to say thank you, to you beings and intelligences and awarenesses and energies and entities that make my material existence on this beautiful planet possible. I have a greater appreciation for that because of certain books that I've read and things, particularly coming from people who are coming from what I'll call more indigenous traditions, wisdom traditions and cultures that really have much more at their core and their center and understanding of the interrelatedness of all, and also that because of these relationships, the understanding that if we're really going to live like we're supposed to, then life is always about a flow of give and take. It's always about reciprocity, that I receive and I give, that this is life, and that life cannot exist if the giving stops or the receiving stops.
Hmm.
If I stop receiving the air in my lungs, I will aspirate and I will die,
Hmm.
guaranteed. Same thing with water, takes a little bit longer. Same thing with food, and that takes even longer. So, okay, so that was coming up for me. Okay, and then now we got to talk about touching grass, literally touching grass. Okay. We look forward to you joining us for our next episode where we talk about earthing and also the ways that we can contribute to the earth as well. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wake Up Call for the Soul with Bill and Claire. May we love ourselves and all more and more with each passing moment. We wish you the very best and highest. Until next time.